All around Charlotte-Mecklenburg, we are seeing this kind of solution to this kind of problem. Pollution on the ground gets picked up by rainwater. It usually goes down a storm drain, into a pipe, and directly to the nearest creek. But here, the stormwater and its pollution flows off the parking lot and into this rain garden. Experts call it a bioretention cell.
Bioretention gardens are engineered structures that are used to treat polluted runoff from hard surfaces such as buildings and roadways and parking lots within the city of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, and the 6 towns.
Rain gardens and other on-site treatment structures are now the law. Post-construction controls ordinances were passed in 2007 and 2008. They require most new development and redevelopment in Charlotte-Mecklenburg to have these BMPs, or Best Management Practices. They look like landscaping, but their purpose is capturing stormwater runoff and removing certain pollutants. Even fertilizer can be a pollutant when there's too much of it. The main ingredients in fertilizer are nitrogen and phosphorus. Plants need those nutrients, but if there's more fertilizer than the plants can absorb, the excess phosphorus is washed off into our waterways.
While it's good as a fertilizer, when it gets into our streams and lakes, it can cause toxic algae blooms, which can eventually kill fish.
Rain gardens, with their specially chosen soils and plants, act like a sponge. They soak up common pollutants like loose dirt and that algae-causing ingredient in fertilizer, phosphorus.
And that soil becomes saturated at a certain point and has to be tested every so often to determine when it is saturated.
If the soil is saturated with phosphorus, you can't tell just by looking. Local ordinances require that you take soil samples from the rain garden and have them tested by an approved laboratory.
So our goal in doing sampling is to determine the point at which that soil becomes saturated with phosphorus.
To sample the soil in a rain garden, you'll need an auger, a measuring tape or measuring wheel, and a clean bucket or large plastic bag.
So what you're going to see today is an example of how you can collect a representative sample of that soil media to see if its levels of phosphorus are too high for the rain garden to perform effectively.
First, figure out how many soil samples you need to collect. Start by measuring the area of the rain garden. You can use information from the approved construction drawing or from the as-built survey, or you can measure the area manually using a measuring wheel. Multiply length times the width to determine the soil media area. The area of this particular rain garden is 16,000 square feet. If the soil media extends up the side slopes, include the height of the sides in the measured area. For each 1,000 square feet of rain garden, you'll need to collect 2 soil samples. For this 16,000 square foot rain garden, that means collecting 32 soil samples. Next, you'll need to mark the sampling locations. To determine each 1,000 square foot section, divide the soil media area of the rain garden into 30 foot by 30 foot grids. You can use a measuring wheel to measure 30 feet and use your foot to mark the edge of the grid line. Within each grid, mark 2 random points for borehole locations. You'll collect soil media samples from each of the 2 boreholes inside each grid. Mark the auger handle at 12 inches to make sure you know how deep the borehole should be.
Well, studies have shown that phosphorus actually concentrates in the top 12 inches of the soil media. So when you sample, that's the area of the soil that you want to sample, is the top 12 inches.
The auger needs to be clean. If water alone doesn't do the trick, use only phosphate-free detergent or cleaner. Push back the mulch layer at the marked locations to expose the soil media. Use the auger to collect a soil sample. Place the sample in the clean bucket or large plastic bag. No matter how small the rain garden is, you'll need a minimum of 2 soil samples. For larger rain gardens, collect 2 soil samples from inside each 30 foot by 30 foot grid. All of the soil samples from all of the grids should be put into the same bucket or bag. Make sure the soil samples from the different grids are thoroughly mixed together. Each rain garden should have 1 combined soil sample to be analyzed by the laboratory, but do not mix soil samples that come from different rain gardens. The combined soil sample must be put into a box or other special container provided by a soil laboratory. As soon as you fill the box, write the identification information on the side. Fill out the appropriate shipping paperwork according to the laboratory's instructions. Make sure that the sample is analyzed for phosphorus using the Mehlich-3 method. After the adoption of the Post-Construction Controls Ordinances, many rain gardens and other BMPs just like this one were built around Charlotte-Mecklenburg. And as the years go by, most rain gardens stop absorbing excess phosphorus.
At the point where the soil media becomes saturated with phosphorus, it no longer removes it. As a matter of fact, it starts leaching it back out into the environment and concentrating it in the downstream areas. That's when you have lakes and streams that'll have algae blooms that can actually lead to fish kills.
When you get your results from the lab, you'll know if your BMP is still doing its job, or you'll know that phosphorus-filled rain garden needs an overhaul. If the phosphorus index is 50 or higher, the soil in the rain garden is no longer absorbing phosphorus.
At that point, the soil would need to be completely removed and replaced with fresh soil that has lower levels of phosphorus so that it again can begin filtering that phosphorus.
After the lab analyzes the soil samples and sends you a report, you'll need to provide a copy of the lab results to Charlotte-Mecklenburg Stormwater Services. Inside the Charlotte city limits, the contact person is Mike McIntyre. In the 6 towns and unincorporated Mecklenburg County, lab results should be sent to Heather Davis. Property owners are required to annually inspect their rain gardens or other BMPs built to comply with the post-construction ordinance. Maintaining those rain gardens is also the property owner's responsibility. Soil testing must be done at least every 3 years. All soil media that is no longer effective must be replaced.
Each developer or owner is required to do their part to treat stormwater. New development and redevelopment projects within the city of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, and the 6 towns are required to install these devices. Now, while the area that they treat might not look like a very big area, when you multiply all the developments by all the acreage in Charlotte, it produces a significant impact to the environment. And treatment devices like bioretention gardens can really help reduce those pollutant levels going into our streams and lakes.
Reducing water pollution at the source means lower costs for turning lake water into drinking water and improved quality of life for everyone in Charlotte-Mecklenburg.